Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. My name is Brian. This is where Maga comes to talk. So President Trump, I'm so glad to hear him say this at the rally in South Carolina. And what he said was that, he said he heard a commentator say that the Republican Party is 80% MAGA. And he said no. He said the Republican Party is 100% MAGA. And nothing could be more true than that. 100% MAGA. If you're not MAGA, you're not a Republican. And, that's the truth. The 80% that person was, whoever that was, he was quoting, because he didn't say who he was quoting, right? But the person that he was quoting was a rhino or a Democrat, because you're either MAGA or you're not. I've talked many times over 10 years since Trump came down the escalator that being a Republican before Trump came down the escalator was not, it was awful, because all of the Republicans that were in power before Trump were all like John Thune, right? They were all like John Thune. And they didn't do anything. They would run in elections and say, okay, we 10 commandments in the classroom, Second Amendment rights, and the border. They would say all the things you wanted to hear, all the buzzwords. We support a woman's right to, or we support a baby's right to live. They would say all the buzzwords. All these Republicans. This was before Trump came down the escalator. They'd give you all the buzzwords you wanted to hear, right? Tax cuts, all this stuff. They'd get in power and they'd be like John Thune. They would give you every excuse in the book as to why they couldn't get things done, even though we controlled all three branches of government like we do now, other times in the past. And Trump changed all that. So this idea that the Republican Party is not 100% MAGA is insane. The party is 100% MAGA. If you're not MAGA, you're not a Republican. And, there are still rhinos out there. Remember, rhinos are Democrats. Republicans in name only. They're not Republicans, right? It's the wrong label. They are Democrats. Make no mistake about it. I mean, Thune. Look at what, the Save America Act is the most popular legislation I've ever seen by both sides, right? Well over 80%. I think it was like 83%. It was like 83% of Democrat voters support the passage of the Save America Act. With Republican voters, it's like over 95%. But around 83% of Democrats want the Save America Act passed. Think about that, and well over 90% of Republicans, and still it's not passed. It's because the last truly entrenched rhino with power is Thune, right? So many of these rhinos have been purged out. There's still a couple. I would argue that Rand Paul, the president's talked about this, is a rhino. Rand Paul hides behind this libertarian thing as an excuse not to get anything done all the time. But by the way, my name's Brian. This is where Maga comes to talk. Welcome. Make sure you subscribe if you're new. And everyone, please like the video if you don't mind. And don't miss my podcast coming up right after this stream. Okay, I got a great podcast going to cover a lot of things. But Thune is really he's the last powerful rhino in office right now. The last. And I mean, look at the power that this rhino Thune has. He stopped the most popular legislation any of us have ever seen from even coming up for a vote. He hides behind the filibuster, which is nonsense. Then he says we don't have the votes, and every excuse under the book, and it's all nonsense, because the uniparty, of which the rhinos are a part of, do not want the Save America Act passed. And that's why it's so important to have Darlene Graham win this Senate seat in South Carolina. We really need her in South Carolina, right? We need her very much so in South Carolina. And the reason we need her is because she's going to vote for the Save America Act. welcome everyone. And the Save America Act fixes almost all of America's problems. That's it. That's just what you got to understand. The Save America Act, when that is passed and is into law, will solve almost all of America's problems. There's no doubt about it. And that's why we want it passed and we need it passed. And this is what Republican voters have been calling for 20 years. Voter ID to vote. Voter ID to vote. Who could be against such a thing? I mean, how many times do you have to show your ID? You have to show it on, I drove here. I have to have my wallet in my pocket with my driver's license in it. The only reason if you think about it, in this day and age, how many of you pay with cash anymore? Most everybody pays with Apple Pay or something like that, right? The only reason I have a wallet in my back pocket is because I need my state-issued driver's license to drive, because I could be called upon at any moment by Johnny Law to produce ID. I mean, that's it. Everybody's got ID. Every car going down the road has ID. You need ID to do everything. The SAVE Act has to be passed to stop the Democrats from everything, because the Democrats, I agree with that, Riddler too, the Democrats are overrepresented everywhere, in Congress, governors, and your local and state elections. They're just overrepresented everywhere because voter ID is not required, and proof of citizenship to register to vote is also not required. So this is why we need it, and we need it yesterday. And John Thune was successful in pushing it back so long that it won't be, and even if we could pass it now, it wouldn't be in effect by November. So it'll get passed with the new Senate. That's it. We're going to pass it with the new Senate. That's it. And it's going to be done. It's going to have to be done. Yes, welcome everyone. Welcome. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. And right after this stream, I'm going to head back to the studio and have a podcast this morning you will not want to miss. Did you see the president last night? I'm going to go through some of the highlights of that and a few other things. Yeah, that coffee is so hot that if I were to take a big drink, my tongue would be scorched. Too hot to drink, guys. Too hot to drink. Yep, red tsunami. No doubt about it. Red tsunami, man. That's it. That's right. It's coming. Yep. Red tsunami. And the blue flush. What do you like better, red tsunami or the blue flush? I like the blue flush. That's a good one. Yeah, we need the Save America Act. There's nothing more important right now. Nothing more important. Yeah, on the podcast, which will be at 6 a.m. Eastern this morning, live, taking your calls. Iran wants to end the war. So President Trump has Iran on the ropes. He has them on the ropes. Which is awesome. So I'll get into all that and a whole bunch more on the podcast today. You will not want to miss it. Oh man, I tell you, we are so lucky to have President Trump. And then the president got this just incredible victory with the Supreme Court okaying the ballroom. I'm so tired of these people trying to stop the ballroom. First of all, the physical ballroom itself is being paid for with private donations. Everyone knows this. But the ballroom is a cover operation. There have been so many. There was an assassin who was just arrested this week threatening Judge Janine. How many assassination plots have there been? In this second term, I can't even keep track. There's been so many, right? And the purpose of the ballroom, they're setting up a military post that's never been even conceived of before at the White House. The ballroom is a cover. One, they're building the new bunker deep beneath the White House. Okay, the presidential bunker that we've always heard about all our lives has been under the East Wing. And it's not, the old bunker was built when Harry Truman was president in the 50s. So it's not that deep, it's not that big, and it doesn't have all of the, it didn't have all the modern things that you need with the modern weapons. So they're building a massive new bunker deep underground where the East Wing was. That's what the whole purpose is. The ballroom is a cover. But, you know, the left, they're always trying to get something going where Trump's had a loss. So they, if they could stop the ballroom construction, Trump's lost something. They're psychotic. Maga strong, that's right. They are psychopaths. Anything he does, they try to stop. Yeah, that's true. That's it. I mean, that's... Anything he does, they try to stop it. Absolutely. And you know what? They're always going to be that way, the Democrats. There'll never be a time when they're not that way. Because that's how the Democrats roll. They stand for nothing. They hate Trump. You know, all Democrats and rhinos are like Rosie O'Donnell. They're obsessed with their hatred. They're all a bunch of Captain Ahabs. Trump's their Moby Dick. You know, if they could stop Trump on something for 30 seconds, they feel like they've had a victory. It's not. There's not even going to be a blue ripple. Exactly. I guess they'll get Karen Bass. They'll celebrate Karen Bass in L.A. like that's some kind of big victory. But it's not. It's a big loss is what it is. Mm-hmm. No question about it. No question about it. Okay. All right, so another thing that's important for President Trump is not just the Save America Act, but he talked about this last night. And one of the other things that we very much need, okay, is to maintain control of the Congress. Because if the Democrats were to gain control, the president talked about this last night. If the Democrats were to gain control, all they would do is impeach him every Friday. Every Friday he'd get impeached. You know, you see what they're doing with the ballroom, right? They keep trying to obstruct the ballroom. Their plan is to do the same thing with him with the impeachment. They'll use impeachments like they've been using the federal judges, right? They've been using these Democrat-appointed federal judges to obstruct Trump at every opportunity. Now they're going to use, if they were to win the Congress back, or at least the House, they would use the House to impeach him every week so they could try to slow him down that way. I mean, who in their right mind thinks that making America great again is something to stop, right? Who would think that? I mean, that's just crazy. You know, it's one of those things, make America great again. It's a great slogan. Yeah, Reagan came up with it, you know, in the 80s, but President Trump made it famous. And make America great again, it's a statement that no sane American could disagree with. I mean, if you're an American, how can you disagree with the idea of making America great again, you know? Exactly. I mean, I don't see how anybody could be against something like that. I mean, make your case. You don't. Who doesn't want to make America great again? You know who? Right, the Ayatollah's family. They don't want to make America great again, right? Give me a break. Maduro doesn't want to make America great again. Canada doesn't want to make America great again. How can you be an American who and run for office and be opposed to making America great again? Can anyone explain that to me? You're driving a loader in Washington State. Well, it's pretty early for you in Washington State, man. It's a little after 2 a.m. Wow. Working the overnight shift in Washington State. Oh, man, it's going to be a beautiful day in Florida. You can tell already it's a beautiful morning. Welcome. If you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe, guys. Only people who hate America, right? That's right, which are the Democrats, the left. I mean, by the way, I looked when I was going through the news this morning. I was doing all my show prep for the podcast. Don't forget, the podcast will be live at 6 a.m. Eastern this morning after this stream. I didn't see this morning, I was looking for it too. I didn't see a single story about the USS Abraham Lincoln. Did you? Not a single story about the Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, we want to make Australia great again too, Scott. Absolutely. Our brothers in Western civilization in Australia. That's right. What happened to the stories of the starving sailors on the Lincoln? Country before party. Well, that's what the MAGA movement's about, Lucky Brooklyn. We're about country first. Well, liberals love to burn the American flag. They think burning the American flag is the highest form of patriotism. I mean, put your mind around that. Right? 4 10-hour shifts, that's a good deal. See, there's the liberals with their language again. What is it with these liberals with the language? Just vile language on the left. Vile. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. The news cannot tell the truth. That's for sure. That's for sure. They cannot tell the truth. No doubt. Yep, military families, yeah. I think it's an insult, really, to the military personnel in all branches and their families. You know, if they were really starving on the Lincoln, okay, believe me, we'd still be hearing about it. We'd still be hearing about it. The Democrats will never get it, no matter how many times they lose. Miserable losers. Yeah, they're sore winners too, you know. But this Abdul character in Michigan, he's doing incredible damage to the Democrats. The Democrats are really in a bad spot with him. You know, they keep picking these candidates that are just destructive to their already damaged brand, you know. Hold on, guys. I got to mute the mic for a moment. Can someone tell me? I don't have my watch. I left my Trump watch on my desk again. What? How far past the hour is it? How many minutes past the hour is it? Can someone let me know in the chat? If you don't mind, I'd appreciate it. Because then I'll know when I got to leave to go back to the studio for the podcast. The left is completely evil and does not deserve any grace. They are evil. I mean, you know, I was talking, okay, 5:26. Okay, I got a couple of minutes before I got to head back. You know, I was, don't miss my podcast from last night, too, with Candace Owens in the thumbnail. I was talking about these lunatic women defending this Lindsay Clancy. You won't, I mean, I was in shock how these liberal women are defending this child killer. I couldn't believe it. And I played some of the audio of the women defending this child killer. I've never seen anything like it. I really haven't. I was in complete shock. You know, it's one thing to have a handful of lunatics. There's always a handful of lunatics, but there's hundreds and hundreds of women are showing up to support a woman who murdered her 3 children, and I did a really good breakdown on that. Candace Owens is in the thumbnail. So check that podcast out. You used to be a Democrat because you didn't pay attention to politics. Trump was my awakening. Well, that's pretty cool. You know, that's true for a lot of people. My mother in 2024 voted Republican for the first time in her life. You know, my mother grew up like in the 60s, you know, and she didn't really follow politics or anything, and then she retired. And when she retired, she started following the news a little bit closely, and I was in shock when she voted for Trump. I never thought I'd see it. Yeah, I know. That was a hard podcast for me to do because I don't like to think about things like that woman did. You know, it's just too heartbreaking. You know, and it was a hard podcast, but it had to be done. You're a psychiatrist. Well, there's a lot of liberals that need your help. Well, what I was talking about on the podcast last night, you know, they're saying, well, she's mentally ill, so she shouldn't go to prison. I think everyone, and I, you know, I'm not a doctor, so this isn't like some official diagnosis, but I think it's pretty obvious. Anyone, give me a yes or no to this question. Anyone who murders another human being, except in self-defense, right? Anyone who murders another human being is mentally ill. All murderers are mentally ill. Doesn't mean they shouldn't go to prison, right? Exactly. That's exactly right, Travis. Oh, she's getting her due process. She's in a court with a jury, but it's in a liberal town. You know? That's it. I mean, she's in a very liberal town. Well, the Supreme Court often is wrong. I mean, you know, if you think the Supreme Court is the gospel, I mean, the Supreme Court ruled that black people are property, right? Dred Scott. Just because the Supreme Court rules something doesn't mean that there's a gospel. There's a lot of politics on that Supreme Court. You know that, right? See, when you see the liberals, the liberal trolls in the chat, you can see the anger. They're either in all caps or they're typing way too much, you know, with weird emojis and everything. Just bizarre. Yeah. He was at the store. She was talking on the phone to her husband. What was he, at Walgreens or something? She was on the phone. He was out running errands and while she was killing the kids. She's nuts. But that doesn't mean she shouldn't go to prison. You can be nuts and still go to prison for your crime. Yeah. She is. I did a whole podcast on that last night. It's Candace Owens is in the thumbnail. You won't want to miss it. I mean, I did the whole thing on that, pretty much. Oh, she's a terrible person. Terrible person. No question about it. Mm-hmm. See what I mean about the liberals? Like, you know, you could get the just no boundaries, just the anger. Well, listen, guys, I'm going to head back to the studio. So if you're new, make sure you subscribe. Everyone, please like the video. You know, when you like the video, you get the video recommended to people that have not yet found the channel. So please like the video. And I'll see you in a few minutes in the studio on the podcast taking your live calls, all right? My name is Brian. This is where Maga comes to talk. I'll see you in a few.